Grab your cup of coffee. Time for a special Q&A all about budgeting.
Hope and I recently received a bundle of questions from you, our viewers.
All about budgeting. But before we get started on the video, we received a very special Christmas gift from a viewer. We rolled camera while we were opening it, so here's what happened.
Drum roll.
Behold.
All right. Oh, we have a card.
Right.
We have a card.
Says,
there's a card.
These are fun. For those who don't know, Daniel loves to cook, and it is...
Vegan mayonnaise.
This is Barney's Coffee, creamy, buttery, caramel. Barney's also cinnamon macadamia nuts.
Tea.
Oh, yeah.
African herbal tea.
Nice. Nice. Here's what they look like.
They're both Madagascar vanilla. Mary,
Awesome.
Thank you so much. What a lovely surprise package of gifts. Mary, we had your address all set aside to send you a personal thank you note in the mail, and we have lost your address. We are so sorry, but we do hope that you will be able to see this very special thank you. If you see it, let us know in the comments section, will you? Let's get started on the questions that you all submitted for us to answer about budgeting.
Question number 1 comes from Lynette. She says, I was wondering if you guys could share some tips on how to save money even when you're really busy and can't make everything from scratch. I know the kitchen, aka food budget, is the easiest place to theoretically save money. But my husband and my schedule often leaves us running ragged with little time to meal prep or cook from scratch many nights of the week. I'm half considering just making pasta for the foreseeable future.
I've so been there. Only for me, it's like baked potatoes. It's like you run out of ideas and you're like, somebody grab some baked potatoes. We're going to throw them in the microwave and then come up with something to top the potatoes. Listen, my best advice is don't do it. Don't make everything from scratch. There's a season in life for everything. For years, I made all of our bread from scratch. And at one point, when we had 4 boys ranging in age from about 14 to 2, I looked at Larry and I said, this is overwhelming. And he looked at me and said, don't do it. Just stop doing it. He's like, go to the bread store, buy bread. Feel okay about it. It is okay. And so that is our answer to your question. It's okay not to make everything from scratch. You don't have to. So pick your deal breakers that you think, I really got to make this from scratch. And if it's not on that list, it is up for grabs.
And I have an alternative too to that. So let's just say maybe find some meals that don't take as much time to prepare. Now, Hope is really good with making some soups in the morning. She'll put soup in a crock pot, all the makings for it, whatever the raw materials happen to be, depending on the soup of the day. And by noon or by evening, depending on when we want it, that soup will be ready for us. Then it's just a matter of having a few side dishes to go with it. So the other thing you might think of doing is just simply simplifying.
Now, the other thing I do with that soup that Larry probably doesn't even know that I do with that soup is I often get it ready the night before I go to bed. And I stick the whole crock pot insert into the refrigerator overnight. First thing in the morning before you leave to go to work, all you need to do is take that crock pot insert out, put it in the crock pot base, turn it on low, and by the time you get back 8 hours later from work, 9 hours later from work, you got soup. It's all ready to go.
There you go. Question number 2. Ellen asks, so my question is, with the talk of a financial reset by the government and banks and going into digital currency, first, do you think that will happen? And secondly, what have you done to prepare for this scenario?
Well, talk of a financial reset has been going on for a really, really, really long time. So our best advice is be careful who you listen to, get a wide variety of opinions, and sort of gauge where you feel we're at in the process. Do we think that there will eventually be just digital currency?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that probably will eventually be the case, but we remember in the 1970s, there was a huge uptick in people who really thought we were headed there in a really short period of time, and it just didn't happen. I think that there was a lot of things that would have to be worked out before we ever went to a digital currency, particularly worldwide. I think that there are some organizations that are absolutely pushing for that to happen. But I don't think it's going to happen nearly that quickly. One of the things that we do, though, is we recommend having some cash on hand.
Oh, yeah. But before we address the cash on hand issue, I just want to mention we're kind of heading that direction anyway.
Yeah.
And I think that the change will be more gradual than sudden because there's so many things that have to fall into place. So we're already moving to digital by going with ATM cards. And now in terms of having some cash on hand, I think it's important that you have some cash that you can run on in case you can't get access to your cash that's in your credit union or your bank account. Make sure that you have some in case you can't withdraw any money out of your ATM machines in case of some kind of a national event. It might be a natural disaster or whatever that might be keeping you from getting to that money, a major power outage of some kind. We do recommend that you keep some cash maybe for a week or 2 weeks.
Yeah, or up to 4 weeks, I would say.
4 weeks?
But that's
Well,
that's
that's
not
whatever.
related to digital currency. That's just currency, guys. It's like an extra tip we just threw in and you didn't even have to ask about it.
Yeah.
Turning my paper over. The other question that she had was about stockpiling, and her family is very specific in what they will and won't eat. But she has some stuff on hand. She thinks, I don't know, if something really bad happens, we'll probably eat it. Don't put stuff in your stockpile that your family won't eat. Honestly, if they won't eat it now, they're not going to be any more likely to eat it, and certainly not more likely to like it in the event of an emergency where you got to dig into your stockpile. Keep your stockpile. Ours is probably at least 6 months. Pre-pandemic, it was 1 to 2 months. Now we probably could go 6 to 9 months. And the whole idea of a stockpile for us is to give us time to figure out what the next step is. It's not to survive on that stockpile for 2 or 3 or 4 years. We're just looking at maybe an immediacy of about 6 to 9 months.
And there's different ways to package those to make them keep for a long period of time. So take a look at all the angles and make sure that you have a plan just in case you need to have that food on hand.
Wait, and we should say before we move on, the plan should be prioritized. I know y'all you were waiting for me to say that word in this video.
Let's do it together.
Okay, ready?
Ready, yeah. Prioritized.
Love it. All right, question 3. Deanna from New Zealand. Deanna, you have summer right now. We are in the middle of winter, and we are very, very envious of you right now being in summer. How do you make a budget when you have bills to pay and hardly any money left over to save? Sometimes it seems futile to budget. I've never really understood the idea behind it. Any help would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, well, we've been there. We understand
Absolutely.
that. We've been in a place where we didn't have an awful lot of money to save. And that was when I lost a job working for a media corporation, and I ended up working for our city. And I took a substantial cut in pay.
It wasn't pretty for a while. So we have been where you're at. The reason you need to budget is because if you don't know exactly where the money is going, you just wind up with this over-ending idea month after month as I'm going to make the money, I'm going to spend the money, I'm going to make the money, I'm going to spend the money. There isn't going to be anything left over. And as long as you stay in that mindset, there isn't going to be anything left over because you don't know really, really where the money is being spent. Once you know where that's being spent, you can figure out where you can cut back and you can figure out where your goals are. Our first budget, $35 a month. That's all we had left over at the end of the budget. So we had to dig in there and figure out where we were spending money that we didn't need to spend.
And I think when money is tight, then all the more reason for you to have a tight rein on your money. It's very important that you know exactly where it's going. Then you can track it better and make some minor adjustments to it. You might even find some places in your budget where you can make it go a little farther and have some more money for savings as long as you know what's coming in and what's going out. To me, not budgeting is kind of like driving with a blindfold on. You have no way of knowing where you're going. So you want to make sure that you have a good, clear roadmap to your future.
Just to be clear, we are not advocating for the blindfolded driving, and Larry has never tried that. As far as I know, have you ever done that and I don't know about it?
Nope,
okay,
nope,
never done it.
nope,
Just so it's clear, never done it. Question number 4. This is like the little sister question to the one that was just asked. Nancy wants to know, what is the difference between closely monitoring spending, economizing as much as possible, and categorizing and columnizing, which all seems to come out to the same thing? I think when you talk about monitoring spending and economizing as much as possible if you have those things written down, if that's what you're asking. So you have it formally written down so you know exactly where your money's going. And then the flip side of the coin you're asking about is, why do I need to have it, categorized and put in columns? It's because y'all know that we love a good chart, right? And I think that's what she's referring to. So they're both different ways of budgeting. It's the same information, only presented differently.
It's kind of like the difference between a pie chart and a graphic chart. It's just how you monitor it and how you want to display the information.
But if your question at the heart of it is, you're just sort of trying to spend as little as possible, but you're not tracking it, the answer to your question is, that is not budgeting. Budgeting is when you have a spending plan. If you're just going, I'm not going to spend any money, I absolutely don't have to, that's not really budgeting. I mean, I'm not saying ultimately it's not helpful at all. It is. But you're not writing down what you're spending, so you don't know what you're spending, you don't have any goals.
Question number 5, a viewer asks, frugal ways to help with one's mental health. Therapy can be expensive. Well, I can speak from experience. I've been through this. When I was in high school, I had some issues that needed to be worked out, and I had to get help for them. So we were able to find some help that didn't cost a lot of money. There were some social services in our city that at the time my parents found, and got me some counseling there and some direction. There certainly ought to be some low-cost ways to get counseling and get help. Another avenue that I went by a few years later was some counseling with our church. The church that I was going to actually had trained professional counselors set up just for that very thing. And I spent a couple of years in counseling sessions to get some things worked out. And I definitely benefited for having done that and didn't have to break the bank doing it.
The other thing you might want to do, a couple of other avenues, would be to check with a local college or university, I would say, that has a master's level program in counseling. Because when you get your master's in counseling, you have to have a certain number of hours that basically, like, you practice counseling and you are under the direction of a licensed counselor. So it's kind of like when you go to get your hair cut at a place where they teach you to cut hair. It's a little bit like that. But I know that a lot of times then they're looking for those clinical hours, and you may be able to find a situation where you're able to get some help that way. You also might want to check with some local agencies and see if there is a sliding scale available. Ultimately, we happen to believe that mental health should be covered under insurance.
Yes, it should.
There's no doubt in our mind, and it's a travesty that most insurance policies will not pay for mental health counseling, and they absolutely should do so.
Yeah. Question number 6. Tammy says, I'm currently doing the envelope system. Good for you. It's a good, solid system. Dave Ramsey approved. In your opinion, what would be the best thing to do with the extra money left over in the envelopes? Well, I can think of a lot of things to do with it.
No, don't. No? That's a bad question. Larry can always come up with money left over in envelopes, things to do. Listen to me. This is my answer to it. We don't use envelopes a lot. We do tend to use the envelope system. However, when we run into a situation where we are consistently overspending in a budget category and we feel like we shouldn't be doing that it's possible for us to stay within the parameters of that budget category. Like food, for instance. If I was consistently going over 3-4 months, then I would get it in cash and spend it out of the envelope. I've done it a multitude of times, and it works like a charm every single time to get me back on track.
Those are the weeks when I don't go with her to the grocery store.
Yeah, because I always remember Larry can find something with the money left over in an envelope. So we have dealt with this a couple of different ways. In our budgeting system, we have a lot of sinking funds that we treat as though they are envelopes of money.
Right.
So what happens for us is we sort of monitor when we're going under a significant amount of time. We monitor how many months have you really been going under. So the example you give is like sometimes there's an extra 20 or so left at the end of a pay period in your fuel envelope. Leave that money in there, because what happens for us when we monitor our fuel, is that sometimes we get to the end of the month and we think, hot dog, we didn't spend very much on gas this month. And what we are not realizing is that both cars are on E. And the minute it goes to the first or the second of the month, then we're filling up both cars and then blows out that extra money that would be left in that envelope. It's possible that you have under budgeted for fuel. That's always possible. But I would never suggest you take that money out and put it toward any other envelope or put it toward paying off debt or anything until you find out if this is an anomaly or not. For us, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, and with fuel, it can fluctuate so much in the cost. So fuel goes up and down. It's a little hard to wrangle that one. So that's the other reason why I think I would leave it there rather than, as you mentioned here later, you said something about paying down debt or putting it toward an emergency fund. I would hold off on that until you've gone a full 12 months with that amount of money. And at the end of 12 months, if you consistently put more and you have more left over in that envelope, then maybe you can reduce the amount in that category and slate that for whatever is important to you, your emergency fund or your other categories.
So that's what Larry and I do at the end of every year. He looks for the money left over in the sinking fund categories because that's when he gets to spend the money left over in the envelope. And usually, to be honest, he doesn't spend a lot of money. We usually just put it toward one of our goals or something like that. But every once in a while, there's something we've been wanting to buy or wanting to do, and that leftover money will go for that. You can do it every 6 months. You don't have to wait till the end of the year. But
that's
the
just
whole
a suggestion.
point is.
Yeah.
You want to make really good and sure that that extra money left over in that envelope, just by nature of the spending cycle that you have every month, it's not eventually going to be reabsorbed. And you find out 6 months later, oh, wait a minute, I really did need that money. And that's our concern with immediately putting it toward another use. Yep. So just wait. Once every 6 months, once every 12 months, then take a look at it and make changes if you want to.
Liz wants to know if there's any tips on budgeting when your partner doesn't want to cut costs.
Well, and you weren't the only one who asked, Liz. We get this question a lot. You have to determine whether it's a communication problem or whether this is a relationship problem that you really need to go get some third-party help from. And there's no shame, as we mentioned earlier. Clearly, y'all know we don't think there's any shame in doing that. There's value in someone outside the situation being able to look at it objectively and say, I think that what you are saying is not what he is hearing. One of the things that you all, I don't know if we've talked about this a couple of times, I guess, is the first time I ever went to Larry and said, hey, we were both making $5 an hour. And I said, we're going to live within our means and we're going to save up and pay cash for the next car. And Larry said, you're crazy.
But I caveated that
He
with
did immediately.
If you can do it, I'm on board. So if you want to show me the pathway to get there, I'll cooperate and help you get there. So, I didn't think we could do it on our small income.
So what I had to understand is what I was saying, he was hearing as this is an absolute impossibility. What in the world are you talking about? Because I had all these great plans, and I'd been listening to
Larry Burkett
radio programs, and
Larry
I'd been
Burkett.
taking notes, and he was like, it was almost like I was having a whole conversation that he wasn't in. So I was approaching him like he was already in on the conversation. He was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
I didn't have all the background information, but then I started listening to him. Now, for people who aren't familiar with Larry Burkett, he was the early 1990s version of Dave Ramsey.
So that would be our advice is make sure your partner understands what you're really saying and they're hearing what you're saying. If you're saying, we can't afford to go out to eat, what they might be hearing is we're never going to step foot in a restaurant the rest of our days of our life. And that maybe isn't what you're saying. Make sure you're speaking the same language and you're both hearing what one another is saying. And the other thing that I had to really do for Larry said, show me the money.
Exactly.
And that's what,
exactly.
And so I created a chart. I know that shocks everybody, but I did. I created a color-coded chart to show him where we were at, where we wanted to go, and the steps in between that were going to lead us from where we were to reaching the goal. Once he saw that, and it's all a matter of speaking your partner's or your spouse's love language so that they understand and can see in in reality what it is that you're saying. So speak to that language that they really like to hear and learn information in, and you might find that that's super helpful to get on the same page.
Hello, Hope and Larry. Cowgirl would like to know how to stick with $75 a week budget for groceries when the cost of fresh produce continues to rise.
Cowgirl, anytime I hear anybody say, I want to know how to spend $75 a week only on groceries, it makes my heart so happy. It's like speaking my love language. Here's the long and short of it. You have to be able and willing to look around and source what you need for what you're willing to pay. And you may have to look at different sources that you've never used before. For us, I mean, we found out, I don't know how many years it took us to find out that our local Mediterranean Mart sold produce, a lot of it organic.
In bulk.
Unbelievably low prices.
Yeah. And
once you find a deal, buy as much of it as you can, process it. It's not, is it going to be fresh? No. But, you know, we're used to living in the Midwest, which means that, you know, 4 months out of the year ain't nothing growing around here. And we have to rely really on what we put in the freezer or dehydrated or canned in order to have things to eat. It's not fresh, but I mean, it is minimally processed, and you're still going to be able to eat the best fruits and vegetables at the lowest price that you could pay.
Our good friend Glenda says, hi guys, I'd like to know if you should throw all of your windfall funds at building an emergency fund or building your sinking funds, or should you do both?
Okay, the answer is yes. Here's what we mean by that. Anytime you have a windfall, you need to determine what percentage of that windfall is going toward paying off debt, what percentage is going toward sinking funds, what percentage is going toward your emergency fund. Basically, you're working on a whole bunch of goals, but you're working on them all at the same time. So any amount of money every month that is available to put toward goals, you're going to divide it up just like you would a pie chart and put, 50% here toward that goal, 20% toward that goal, 30% toward that goal. We find for us using the percentage method is gold. It works every single time. And it helps us know that we're making progress on all the goals at the same time, because otherwise you sort of lose your enthusiasm and it just, you feel like you're not getting anywhere.
We actually just did a video where we presented the percentage method. And if you want to watch that video, we have it linked up above, and it's going to be in the description of this video as well. So you can watch it after you continue watching this one.
All right, so as we continue with this video, we'd love to know, are you finding this helpful? If you're even finding it remotely amusing, maybe. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. Give us a like, will you guys? Because it does help us with the YouTube algorithm. And while you're at it, make sure you subscribe to Under the Medium. Question number 10. Katerina. I love that name. It's so fun.
It's an interesting name.
All right.
Sounds like the name of a ballerina.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Hello, Hope and Larry, or anyone in this community. She's asking for your input too, guys. I was wondering, is the price of a product, service, etc., the only decisive aspect? Would you prefer buying according to your budget or your values? We've had a discussion, my husband and I, and decided to significantly lower our purchases in the zero waste bulk shop owned by our neighbor because of her high prices.
Well, this is a case where you have to realize you only have so much money you can put into your groceries. We like to buy organic when we can afford it, but there's a lot of items that we just don't afford. We can't afford it, so we don't buy them. And there are some, for instance, fruits that do okay that aren't organic. I think it's oranges. Aren't they better?
Yeah, you get that thick skin.
So with the thick skin, it's not quite as much of an issue with those. So you have to kind of look at what is what are the fruits and vegetables that absorb more of those sprays than others, and you probably want to go organic with those for the most part.
So what we're suggesting to you is, when this was our problem with organic versus conventional, we figured out what our deal breakers were. What were the fruits and vegetables we thought, nope, we really need to try to find that organic. So apply that same thinking toward what you're asking about right now. How important is this product or service to you? And that might mean shopping less of the time at that bulk shop, but you're going to say, I know that there are 4 items that are at that bulk shop, and those are the items important to me. You're going to go every month, once a month, every other month, say to that shop, and those are the items that you are going to make sure that you prioritize buying from that venue.
So you want to know the price of the items that you're looking for and look for a good deal on them.
Now, you asked about whether price is the only thing we look at to make our decision on buying, and the answer is absolutely not.
No.
We have shelled out some significant amount of money over 34 years of marriage on items that were rather expensive and high quality, but we did our research. We knew exactly what we wanted to buy. We knew what the price point was regularly. We knew what we were willing to spend, and we waited until we found a great deal on that product, and then we bought it. Because we'd saved up for it, we didn't feel bad about it at all. You know, frugality is never, ever, ever about deprivation, and it's not about buying the cheapest thing. Frugality is about choosing when, where, and how you're going to spend your money, so that when you find that higher priced product and you know that's important to you, you're going to be able to spend the money on that. Now, interestingly, coming up, I think it's on the 20th of this month, guys, we are going to do a collab with Kate Caden. Tell us if you're excited about that, because we really are. We love Kate. The collaboration is going to be on, is frugality the same thing as deprivation? So we're going to be able to give you our thoughts on that. And then Kate also is going to give you her thoughts on that. We're going to do it so that you'll be able to watch the live premiere on our channel. And then we'll give you about 10, 15 minutes to head over to Kate's channel, and we'll all be watching it live on Kate's channel. So we're all going to watch it live together on the same night. We'll watch the premieres back to back. So hopefully that's going to be super fun. But yeah, we've put some thought into this issue recently, and we're going to give you our thoughts.
Looking forward to that. Cherry wants to know how to be frugal when it comes to pets. Well, you know,
you just
Cherry,
spend the money, Cherry. That's what we're going to tell you. We had Shelby. She was spoiled.
We had, she was a black lab golden retriever mix. And the thing about Shelby is she wasn't really an expensive dog. She didn't have to be groomed. Those breeds are pretty healthy. Mixed breeds tend to be a pretty healthy mix. We did some things, though, that we tried to kind of look down the road, things that would benefit her health-wise so she could stay healthy. And that would be to feed her good dog food. We fed her IAMS dog food, and she stayed on that her entire life, did really well with it. We took her for walks regularly. We took her to the vet regularly for the checkups that she needed. We also spent a lot of time with her. Dogs and cats, any animal that you have, any pet that you have, they need to have time spent with them. So you have to think about all the things that will benefit them. And as long as they're healthy, that's going to keep your costs down.
Now, one of the things that we did do is we asked around, we asked friends, what vet do you use? Why do you love them? And we were looking for a vet that truly, truly loved what they did, and that they were also reasonably priced. And we found one, but we drove, I think it was about 17 miles each direction to and from that veterinarian. Even though there were veterinarian clinics in town where we lived, we chose that one, and we chose to drive a distance because we loved them so much. So find somebody who loves your pet as much as you do. And this is a fairly new thing. I did a little bit of research on it. A lot of veterinarian clinics now are offering like paid programs, paid yearly programs, where you pay one amount of money at the beginning of the year, and it's going to cover 1 or 2 visits a year. It's going to cover maybe some routine vaccinations. It will cover specific tests, that kind of thing. So it's like one money, and then you get everything that you've paid for when you need it throughout the year. A lot of times they'll offer off, like some of the ones I looked at, they had offered like telepet health. It's kind of like human telehealth, only it was for pets. And you could conference with the doctor via Zoom or something like that. They offered 24-hour service where you would get in right away within 24 hours if you needed their services. So check into that. There were a lot of different price points out there. A lot of different programs covered a lot of different things, but that might actually, in the long run, do the math, be less expensive for you than what you're doing now.
And I might say right from the outset, we were looking for, in our case, a dog that we could afford. We went to our local animal shelter and we paid a lot less money out because Shelby wasn't a full-bred dog. So we didn't pay an exorbitant amount of money. I think we actually paid about $60 for her from the animal welfare place. So there's definitely ways to get pets that aren't going to cost you a lot of money on the outset.
Before we move to the next question, I think you have to be honest with everybody, Larry. What was it that you said to me when we were going to look at the pet shelter?
Well, I told Hope, I said, you know what, Hope, we're just going to go down there and look. I knew
We're
better.
not going to come home with a dog.
I knew if I got her in the door, we were coming home with a dog.
Question 12. Thank you for your honesty, Larry.
You're welcome.
Question 12. Corrine wants to know, hi, Hope and Larry. Hi, Corrine. Nice to hear from you. Do you have suggestions on how to compensate in a budget for overspending, as in a blowout spending from time to time that doesn't involve robbing Peter to pay Paul within budget categories? Thought of selling things, starting my budget fresh whenever it happens. What do I do when I accidentally do this? We've done this.
I think refreshing your budget is a great way to deal with it.
That is not how you deal with it. Don't listen to him. Okay, so this is the truth. For like 3 years in a row, we had an actual category in our budget called
I don't know what I was thinking.
So we would throw anything in there. Show them what you got.
Let's give you
He's
an
going to
example.
give you an example of the I don't know what I was thinking budget.
Okay, so we were collectors at the time, and I saw this little toaster at I think it was an estate sale. Actually, it was an estate sale. Our friends had one of these in mint condition. Now, this is a 1939 Sunbeam Art Deco toaster, and it was featured in the old 1960s Pop-Tarts commercials.
The luscious taste of Kellogg's Blueberry Pop-Tarts.
Blueberries are our friends.
Anybody remember that?
I put this in our category of I don't know what I was thinking.
Now, here's why he even showed this to you, and I wanted to give him ample time to tell the story. Because this inevitably happened with the, I don't know what I was thinking, part of our budget. We wound up justifying buying what we wanted because that category was there. So we're actually going to tell you don't do what we did. Instead, we suggest that you look at what exactly are these expenses that are blowing out your budget. Is it stuff you actually need? If that's the case, if it's not an immediate need, then what you might want to do is figure out what that's going to cost you and make that a short-term savings goal. Set the money aside. Go ahead, sell those extra items. We all have extra items in our house that we literally will never use. Go ahead and sell those items, and every time you get cash for that, put it in an envelope, and the envelope should be marked the name of whatever it is that you're saving for. And once the money is available in the envelope, go ahead, spend the money, because then you're not blowing out your budget. Instead, you've decided this is a priority for me. This is why it's a priority for me. This is why I actually need this item. I'm going to save up for it. And I'm going to gladly spend the money because I planned for it.
And having said all that, I just want to point out that this toaster actually works. It toasts toasts. So
that's just it. See, our friend's toaster, it looked pristine, but it didn't work.
It didn't work. Theirs didn't work.
So Larry felt like he had one up on him because our toaster actually worked.
Vicki asks this question. Starting this new budgeting can be a bit overwhelming, and it can. Just gathering everything together and knowing where to start is challenging. Maybe a little starting info would be helpful. I know it's already out there in so many videos, but it's a lot of info to absorb when you're first planning.
And it is difficult to get started. The first thing you need to understand is that it takes 3 or 4 months to actually get the hang of this budgeting thing. For the first budget you put together, probably isn't going to be the exact same budget that you have 4 months later, because stuff happens, life happens, and you realize, oops, forgot to budget for that. Having said that, we actually just did a video and we showed you how almost all of the items that you're spending right now go under about 8 different major budget categories. We showed you in that video how to get the information together that you need in order to populate each of those 8 broad spending categories, and then how to put those spending categories to good use and actually create a workable budget and do it the whole thing in 30 minutes or less. So if you haven't watched that video, this is a great time to do it. It's right over there. Give it a watch.